Hello, everybody, and hello, Tom. A big warm welcome to the Therapist Poetry Podcast. Tom, you are a qualified integrative counsellor, and today you're here to talk about your experience of suicide, and your experience of childhood sexual abuse. Um, a big warm welcome, Tom, and just like to hand it over to you to introduce yourself a little bit and your experience.
Thank you, Ricky. Yeah, I just wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for this forum, for being able to share something I'm passionate about and an opportunity to shine a light for particularly other men who've experienced childhood sexual abuse, suicide, and just to show that it doesn't have to be such a taboo subject to talk about. Um, you know, there is a life of wanting to run away and hide and not be seen and not be heard. I know there's a lot of other people out there that aren't comfortable to hear it, and I just want to share with other people that it is okay to talk about. It doesn't have to be taboo, and yes, there will be people who aren't comfortable with it, but it doesn't mean you don't have to be.
Mm.
So it's really appreciate the opportunity of being able to share that with other people.
I am
Um,
I mean, I'm so happy that I can offer you that. Um, and I can hear the stigma in that. And there is, isn't there? I mean, in my experience, there is that. It's not spoken about as much male sexual abuse. There is still that taboo around it. Um, I wonder why that is.
um, I think for me, it always comes back to the feeling of shame. I think not dismissing or dismissing, and female sexual abuse. Everybody has their stories, and all be valued. And you know, everybody's story is important. But I think there is still that stigma with men that there is another level of shame that because it's not talked as much about.
Hmm.
Where there's a lot more out there now, more for female sexual abuse, and it's talked about an awful lot more. There's still that stigma of it's still shameful. You mustn't talk about it. It's taboo. We'll put it under the carpet. We'll
Mm.
hide it away. You try to talk to someone about it. No, I can't. It's
Yeah.
quickly get rid of it. Um, and I think that is it's the shame, and that's something I wanted to put across to other men is it can be really, really hard just to put it into words, even to write it down. Um, so one of the things I wanted to start off by doing a little demonstration to show other people it's okay is naming that shame. It is the first start of putting it out there, putting it into reality. It's something I have struggled with over the years is that there's a difference between the reality of what's in my head and then the reality of what's in the real world.
Mm.
Um, So there's an awful lot of talk about male survivors, and I've got to admit, I was just briefly talking to you before about, I actually don't like the label survivor
Yeah.
um, because it almost puts us into a box that, yes, we've survived an experience, um, but it also makes you feel like that's all you're ever going to do is just be in survival mode.
Mhm.
And I want to show men that there's more to it than that.
Yeah. That tag walks
Um,
around with you almost of I'm a survivor now. If in some people's, I can see why that that's not a tag that you'd like.
Right, because it almost becomes a battle of the mind, Ricky, because it's like what people don't see on the inside is that there's a whole world inside your head
Mm.
going round and round and round, and also another level in your body, somatics, that it's holding you there,
Yeah.
and it's almost trying to break free of that cage in the mind, because locking yourself in the box of survivor keeps you a survivor. It doesn't actually allow you to break through and move beyond. Um, So I guess I'm going to reintroduce myself to everybody, and that's just to name the shame, show it, you can do it. So I put down, I'm not going to use the word survivor. So my name is Tom. Now, I've experienced childhood sexual abuse by my father and by my stepfather on and off between the ages of 18 and 14. Now, I have experienced addiction for alcohol and gambling, and I've experienced sitting on the verge of going through with suicide based off, based off that childhood sexual abuse and all the things that I experienced and went through.
Mm.
So, that's how I kind of wanted to introduce myself, to sort of say, it's okay to say it to other people. And yes, sure, there will be people that don't want to hear it and they don't get it. But equally, there will be so many other people that will listen and hear.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that and the way you did it as well. It's not your shame to hold, and I can see that that's what you wanted to get across in that actually this is what happened to me, but this isn't my shame to hold, and I don't need to hide my experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't quite sure what order to bring things in today, because obviously, it's all very well saying it, but there's a whole backstory to things, as with anybody, and everybody's experience is different. And obviously, ultimately, we were moving towards sharing a poem that means an awful lot to me. But I guess something I've learned through my counselling training, it's probably better to start with more recently and then look at a little bit of what brought about the poem.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, going through my training as a counsellor, we turn ourselves inside out and back to front, and an awful lot of self-reflection. And what I discovered last year was, when we talk about semantics and the body keeping the score, and I went to work with a body mind coach because I'm quite a sporty person and that's what I needed. I dealt with everything in the mind through my counselling training, but I hadn't realised till I went back into the gym how disconnected my body was.
Yeah.
And what I discovered last October was going through a difficult patch with my partner, together for 16 years. But part of my counselling journey and reflection was realising actually my whole relationship was based off the wrong foundations. And it was everything I'd learned as a child through the lessons I've been taught through sexual abuse and everything else. And it was all about a journey of breaking cycles and not repeating patterns. And I guess for me, what I discovered was that I'd lifted the cloud of grief. And I hadn't realized. I always thought in my own mind, you know what, you've got complex grief, you've got CPTSD, and we talk about all the labels that you perhaps could have. And I thought, actually, I don't need the labels. And I realized, actually, I'd finally, last October, I had an epiphany, and it was because I reconnected the body for the first time in my entire adult life. The best way I can explain it is like people describe the cage, like living in that cage of your head. It's like I'd broken free, and I woke up one morning and I looked at my reflection and I finally saw myself looking back at me, which I hadn't seen all my adult life. All I ever used to see was my father looking back at me, because we looked fairly similar. Now, I used to see the little boy. I used to see the empty shell of an adult, just completely depressed and empty. And I used to see all sorts of things. And it was last October, the first time I actually saw myself again for a long, long time. And it was like monumental. So when we talk about shame, I could pinpoint it to the day, and it was the first time I actually truly felt in body again. And I'd realized, oh, my life, all the clients I've worked with in counselling that we talk about, oh, we're living in our heads and talking a script and we can't see it. I actually saw it in myself. But oh, my life, I hadn't seen it in myself. And now I can say, oh, my life, I've been living the script in my head. I've been thinking my feelings all my life. not realizing how disconnected from body I'd been. And it was the first time I genuinely felt invincible. I felt no shame, no guilt, no nothing. And it was amazing,
Mm.
absolutely amazing, monumental experience. Um,
That, I mean, how powerful to that thinking of you and just seeing yourself in the mirror. And it's a really important message you're getting across there as well, because if our nervous system if our nervous system needs to calm down, we can talk all day long, but our nervous system isn't going to calm down. So getting into the body and that dissociating that was going on for you, that that feels really powerful to be in reality almost for the first time in a long time, or first time to see you. That
yeah,
feels really powerful.
absolutely, because the best way I can ever explain it to people is when you can see both sides. It's like
Mm,
talk an awful lot about grief, and it's something else I wanted to sort of talk to everybody about is with trauma, with everything else, there is so much grief, there's so much loss,
yeah.
loss of self, loss of, whether it's an active grief, for me, it's a loss of a father who's still alive, you know,
Mm,
was also loss of my own identity and myself. Um, but it was absolutely monumental. But it's like the reality of things is the way it's like walking around. It's like default is walking around in a trauma bubble. You are in reality, but it's like there's a haze. Talk about the haze of grief where you're walking around, drifting around, and you're not really connected to things.
yeah.
You think about a bubble, it's like walking around in the bubble. You can see the world, but there's a barrier.
Mm,
It might be a see-through barrier, but there's a barrier there between you and reality.
mm,
So you end up creating your own reality in your head. And it's very, very hard. Even with my counselling training, it's weird to experience both sides where there's an awful lot of people out there that haven't had the training that I've had. I haven't got a clue what's going on. You think you've lost the plot. Even as a counsellor, the amount of times I've come untethered and think, I'm walking through a journey of grief, and I think I've absolutely lost the plot.
mm,
But you've got to go through it. And
yeah.
I think that's been the biggest part of my journey for over the last sort of 5 years through my training is I spent a lifetime suppressing it and holding it in the body and not letting things out. Now I have a completely different philosophy in life. It's something I teach my daughter that, it's better out than in. And it
Yeah.
comes out however it comes out.
Mm. I mean, it's important as well to recognize that part of you. I mean, you use the word suppressing there, and it's important to recognize that that part of you helps you survive as well. It helps you survive the unimaginable. It helps you. It helps you. As a child, you couldn't. It's not like you could go off and get your own house, and survival was involved. You needed to survive. You needed shelter. You needed to eat. Um, so that suppressing, that's a big part of your survival. It played a role there. So it feels important to acknowledge that that part's not bad as well. That part's really
Yeah.
been there
And
for you.
I think one of the films it's a children's film, Inside Out 2. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it
Yeah,
was
yeah, I have.
absolutely. I watched it because my daughter wouldn't watch it with me. And I thought, I'm going to watch it anyway, not knowing at all what it was about.
Yeah,
And then it absolutely was like, oh my God, you know, penny dropped. And it's such a well made film.
hmm,
It explains exactly the loss of self
yeah,
and how I thought I could so relate to it. And I thought, yeah, that's exactly right. And to me, it's like people forget how important grief is. They focus on stress, they focus on depression. Oh, you've got clinical depression. We've got to give you tablets and
mm,
medication and antidepressants. When actually, to me, something I learned through the counselling is where there is loss, there is depression, and where there's loss, there's grief. Depression is part of the grief cycle,
yeah,
and I think grief is so underlooked.
mm,
And I think you can probably pinpoint it down to grief so much. And I thought, actually, yeah, who's in control at the moment? I thought, yeah, most of my adult life, grief and anxiety have been in control. And we talk about joy from the movie. When I'd lifted the cloud, joy took back control.
Yeah.
And that's how I related to it. And I thought, it's weird how you see things. So, one thing I've learned, 3 words I took away from my counselling training is trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
We had it drummed into us by our tutors, and it
Yeah.
has stuck with me ever since. And that's kind of been my journey of late, is actually working through grief, whatever fear boxes are coming along, facing them, and, it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to come untethered and triggered. As I said to you when I joined the Zoom meeting, I said, don't mind saying, knowing that I was coming on to talk about this subject, triggered me off this morning, but it's okay to be triggered.
It's normal. It's absolutely,
it's
we
the
are
normal
nervous.
response.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it feels quite surreal talking to everybody about this, because obviously part of my journey was coming out of grief for the first time, but then it was bittersweet of ending a 16-year relationship, knowing that I'd have to go back into the grief cycle. So I was a little bit worried. I thought about, how am I going to talk about all this if I know that I'm disconnected again? Because the gutting thing, apart from stepping back into grief, is I didn't keep my boundaries well enough, and I lost myself a bit again. And I know I'm still there. And I thought, oh my goodness, I spent all my life, I found myself, and now I've lost myself again. And now I know I've got to go through grief again. But it's the nature of the journey. It will always be there. And what I find is, whenever big life events happen, whether it's parental, me separating with a partner, and my daughter having to go through parental separation, it triggering all my childhood trauma, big life events will always be triggering to people. And what I get out of knowing from my counselling is that I know what's happening. And that's the difference of what I didn't know when I was a younger adult. I didn't know what was going on. Whereas now I can accept that, yeah, I'm triggered. Yes, I am feeling this or that, or I do feel this disconnected. Or I feel that I'm thinking my feelings again and I'm back in my head. All those things, but that's okay, because I know where it comes from.
And it's really important. And the word awareness was coming up for me there, and the power of that, almost the power of having that awareness, just to know what's happening. And there's a little bit more control in that, rather than it just happening to you and not having an idea about what's going on. I'm aware as well, in your poem was wrote at a certain time in your life.
Yeah. And I think it's important to sort of reflect back on when you said that there was an important time for survival. And I think, although I said I didn't like the name and the label of survivor, that it's very much about time. Everybody has a capacity and a readiness when it's the right time for them.
Yeah.
As a child, I needed that survival mode.
Absolutely.
And even as a young adult, even as I am now, I still need that survival mode from time to time, because it depends what life throws at you. But it is also an awareness as well. Sometimes I used to say, sometimes it's better not to know, but actually in the long run, it's always worked out in the end that knowing and understanding and having awareness has always been more important and more beneficial. But there are times when it untethers you, because actually it gives you more information than you actually want to know.
Yeah.
But it also gives your head more of a things to get of a jumble, and it gets confusing for a while, and it's okay for it to get confusing, because it's like undoing a massive ball of knotted wool that it becomes an absolute scrambled mess to undo. So it's natural for that to end up being messy trying to work through it, and there is no right or wrong. It just it is what it is, and you just got to work through it. And I think that's probably the biggest message that I could give to anybody is, find the right person for you to talk to, be able to name the shame. It isn't your shame. And, get the support from the people you need so that you can work through it. But that is basically, it just reminds me of the children's story going on a bear hunt.
Okay, yeah,
Can't go under it. It's another thing
yeah,
that hits home to me. You have to go through it. And it's
mm,
took me all my adult life to get to a point to be ready myself, to go through things.
mm,
It wasn't, we talk about timing of when I wrote the poem, it wasn't till my counselling training that I wrote the poem. And, I suppose the best way I can do is to give everybody a backstory-ish so people can put things in context to how the poem came about
yeah,
before I share the poem. Because I think as you talk about needing to be survival mode, it affected me differently at different stages of my life. And I think that's kind of important for people to realize, it doesn't always affect you at certain times. You get on with everyday life and it's almost like it doesn't bother you or it's not there. So I sort of jotted down a little bit of a backstory that leads things up to the point where I wrote the poem during my counselling training. And that was, well, I'll explain it as I go. So I guess backstory for me is, experiencing childhood abuse between like the ages of 8 and 14. It didn't particularly impact me per se at school because it was that suppressed child mode of it doesn't exist. Well, in fact, actually, I didn't know it was wrong, to be
yeah,
fair.
yeah,
Um, I knew no different. So I actually at the time didn't realize it was abuse.
mm.
I thought it was a perfectly normal, natural relationship with my fathers. Um,
And why would you? Why would you think? Why
and,
would you?
and
You
what,
have nothing to compare it to when we're children. That's we
so,
are where we
yeah,
are.
so for me, it kind of, without knowingly, made me susceptible and vulnerable. But school life for me was like bullying. It was going through a time when my parents separated, not coping with parental separation, losing myself, running away, being made to feel small and not, you know, not you. And that's quite a typical story for an awful lot of children out there.
Mm.
But for the sexual abuse side of things, it didn't really hit home till I went to college and started getting an introduction to the real world, thinking this isn't right. But even then, it was a case of didn't really impact me per se because it's what if I don't talk about it and I don't think about it, it doesn't exist. It's the denial.
Yeah,
And that's when I think I properly first suppressed it and locked it away. And then I went through university life, typical to throw yourself into it, and sex, drugs, alcohol, introduction to that sort of lifestyle. Um, but I hadn't realised how much it was impacting me. I just thought I was university life, we're having a whale of a time. But actually, unconsciously, it was my way of dealing with all of it.
yeah,
And there's a lot of people out there that will resort to, unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I was doing it unconsciously, not knowing probably when I was at university. It wasn't sort of till later on in adult life, you know, typical patterns of not holding down relationships for longer than 6 months. You don't get these, you don't understand it, so you sort of analyze it. And
mm.
going through the counselling training made me have a really long, deep, reflective look at myself and look at my past and look at timelines and things. And then it was like, oh my word, the pieces of the puzzle start to fit together. This is what I was doing then, and this is what I was doing then, but not realizing like how it's impacting me. So like in young adult life, it's like, oh, I've lost my job, stressed at work, I'm feeling depressed, but don't know why. But actually, got offered antidepressants, but I've always refused to take them because triggering for me. I saw the damage it did to my mum taking medication all her life.
Yeah.
So I always had the flip side of it. I'm anti-medication, don't want to take it. Um, so I had all those things through my adult life, and it wasn't till I hit 30 that I had what I call a sort of mini breakdown. And I reached the point where I think a lot of people do when they finally are able to deal with it. And it was like, enough is enough. I cannot hide this any longer. And I wanted to bring it out with the family. And that's all I wanted to do.
Mm.
Didn't want anything more than just, I want the family to know this can't go unsaid anymore.
Yeah.
So I did. And I thought, I want to face my dad and I want the family to know. And you mentioned the word about control before, and that is absolutely monumentally important word when it comes to talking about suicide, because I thought I'd taken control.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad was a bit of a narcissist, and he took control. So I thought, I've took control, I've faced you, the family now, that's enough for me. Now I just need to deal with and process things. But he decided to take control and hand himself into the police when
Mm.
I wasn't ready for it. And I always think back to that point, and that was at the age of 30 when I'd gone from taking control to having control utterly taken away from me.
Mm.
Because then I was forced into police interviews, court cases, reliving all the pain, all the feelings, or having to relive it all and go through it when I wasn't ready for it.
And autonomy. Autonomy is a huge word in this. Your
Absolutely.
experience as a child was against your autonomy, and once again, your autonomy's been taken away.
Yeah, and what I found was, I've always said I've been very grateful to the detective at the time who made me see the black and white, and we talk about reality, that I actually, for the first time, saw the reality of it being abuse and naming it as abuse. And that was at the age of 30. But what I hadn't realised, and in the counselling world, we will do it quite tentatively and subtly and everything else. But, the detective sort of disclosed some of his story to me, and it was like ripping the suppressor out. So I went from 0 to 100. It's like that suppressor I'd locked in to survive
Mm.
just got utterly ripped out.
Yeah.
And then I was just left in an absolute torrent of emotion. The nature of suicide is because people get to a point in their life where it's too much. I couldn't handle any more coming at me,
Mm.
and I didn't know what to do with it. So I used to go for drives and walks to clear my head and try and process things and bits and pieces. And I got to the point one day, we talk about suicide, is that it's having the means, something present at the time. There's a local motorway bridge where I live that is known for, if you like, mental health patients from the local hospital have been known to escape the hospital and throw themselves off the bridge. It's quite a known bridge. There are sort of flowers on it, and people have messages and notes these days. But I hadn't intentionally gone there that day. I'd gone, it's just everything was too much. I'd had my suicidal thoughts. I was going for a drive to clear my head. And then I found myself parked by this bridge and stood on this bridge. And I don't want to go too much into it because the poem for me that I wrote kind of is what it's all about. And
Mm-hmm.
the poem is all about the battle that I went through in my head at the time when everything was too much. Um, but I didn't write about that until my early 40s on my counselling training, when we had a visit from Papyrus, talking about suicide for counsellors, and if it comes across with clients, how's best to approach it and how to deal with things and all that side of things. But there was one word that stuck with me from the chap who came to talk to us about it, and that was the word "but." And it's about people finding that "but," that hope, that something
Mm.
to hold on to.
Yeah.
That absolutely really struck to my core.
Mm,
And that's where the poem got written off the back of it. And it enabled me to process um, all my thoughts and feelings about suicide. It's still something to this day that there are very few people I've spoken to it about. Um, in fact, I'm not entirely sure there's anybody in the family that knows. But obviously, I talked about it on the count with my counselling training and colleagues. I've talked about with a couple of friends and various things. But it's still, again, that taboo subject of, oh my word, if you talk about suicide, you're going to do something about it. Where in
yeah,
fact, actually, someone is desperate to talk about it.
yeah, yeah. And that word "but" feels really important, and I know that's coming up in your poem. And I guess I just wanted to share that "but" might be, it could be so many different things for different people. It might be your pet, it might be someone you love, and it's really important to find that "but" and to talk about it and to use that as a focus as well, something to center around. Um, I'm I'm really excited to hear your poem. And I know that it holds so much meaning for you, Tom. So thank you so much for coming on to share it with us. Are you feeling ready to share that?
Yeah, and just before I do share, I just want to say thank you to everybody for listening, and thank you, Ricky, for allowing me this opportunity to share so much. I know we talked about we could go on and on and on. It's such a huge topic, and I know there's so much more that I would love to share with people. But obviously, I know we are limited for time, and it obviously it's a good point to share about the suicidal side of things. And I don't particularly want to share it anymore other than through the poem, because I think the poem really hits to the core.
Yeah,
And everybody will receive it differently, because suicide to each and every person is unique to them. So I don't want to put my stamp too much on it, but I let the poem speak for itself.
yeah, yeah. And as you say, your whole story comes to this moment. So in what you're saying, everybody's story is different, and when we get to that point where suicide is an option, there's always a story that leads up to that, and there's always a story after that as well, hopefully.
It kind of leads. You probably can't see it, but it's kind of, my daughter doesn't particularly like it, but it's the message I wear all the time at the moment.
Be
Is
kind.
everybody has a story.
Yeah,
Everybody's
absolutely.
going through a battle you don't know about.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a really important message. And I've already heard your poem as well.
Yeah,
So I'm looking forward to hearing it again. Are you ready to share that with us?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So this poem, surprise, surprise, is called "But." When it feels like life is not, and the storm is raging all about, giving you no option, no way out. When the pain hurts and you can't take no more, now that the suppressor is broken no more. When the torrent of pain, the overwhelming urge, like a poison burning every sinew, every nerve. When you find yourself standing there on the edge of the abyss, just thinking a few more steps and then bliss. But wait a sec, where's everything gone? I'm standing here, no pain, no sounds, everything has faded beyond my bounds. It's like I found the eye of the storm, but everything just ceases to exist. Just me alone, no emotion, only my thoughts persist. But what if I can't do this? If I do it wrong and I survive, what sort of life would that be? Physically crippled and trapped inside, with no way to escape or set myself free. There's no way in hell I want that for me. But if I were to succeed, the hurt would spread like a bleed. If I could just make sure no one else was hurt, taking my life would be absurd. All those people that are dear to me, I just can't bear them grieving for me. But why does this have to be so hard? Life's not fair, it's just a charade. Please God, just let me be free of life's dichotomy. All I want is just this one thing to be, without it impacting on those around me. To be free of all-consuming, unimaginable pain, like a tsunami of never-ending rain. But wait a minute, this is not my fault. Why should I let others dictate what can be? Perhaps life's not worth living anymore for me. I can feel the anger building deep inside, saying, fight, you bastard, you are worth more than this. Fight for those who you will surely miss. But if you can't fight for your own sanity, fight for all those other people, just like me. Fight for all those other people, just like me. Give them your strength, your resolve, because abuse is never right, however old. Whatever the type, it matters not. You're not a victim, it's not your fault. Be a survivor, be your own boss. We all know who should be suffering a lot, and that's not me. But wait, what can I hear? The sounds all around me, they slowly appear. The cars on the motorway zipping by, saying, don't let life just pass you by. But oh no, the storm's all around with no way out but to push back through. For heaven's sake, what's a guy got to do? You've got your butt, that's all you need, to hold on tight and dig down deep and break through that impenetrable keep. Batten down the hatches and lock those defences tight, because here comes the fight for your right. Come on, you bastard, grin and bare those teeth. You've got a butt and you will see what a lifeline life can be. You're almost there, you're nearly through. One last push and it's over to you. So if you have a butt, no matter how infinitesimally small, hold on tight, for you will see all the possibilities that life can be. The road ahead will be rocky for sure, but it's your life, not theirs. So I challenge you to do more. But if there is no but for you, just remember, you're not alone. There's always someone at the end of a phone. Fear not, my friend, for there will be no judgment from this end, nor from me. So give someone a call, let someone in, let them disarm your plan and give yourself a chance to see what possibilities in life could be. Just know this, if you are the one, all I want is to be held. No words of wisdom, no advice, just be yourself and that suffice. Just hold on tight, be there for me and wrap me up in empathy. Life and death, they go hand in hand. Where there is one, the other must be, balancing out life's harmony. Everybody's time must come. Just make sure it's on your terms when all is said and done.
Thank you for watching. Seriously, it means the world to me and our guests that you took the time to watch. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button because it really does help the channel to grow. And equally, you won't miss what's coming next if you do that. The aim of this channel and what me and the guests are trying to do is we're trying to inspire and we're also trying to give other people a sense of belonging. And at the very least, we're trying to make other people feel seen and heard. And that's our hope with this channel. If this video spoke to you anyway, then please do check out our other videos just here. We will catch you in the next episode.